Andrew, nice to have you on board, my man.
Pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Congrats on becoming a registered dietitian.
Oh, thank you.
How's that like? How's the work life?
It's work. It's welcome to adulthood and past all the years of college it took me to get here. No more sleeping in after that busting assignment last night. Now it's just the Groundhog's Day over and over, but welcome to the grind. It's good.
Yeah, man, adulthood in its own way, it's something else. Can't be described. It's like no one's got time anymore. That's how it goes. But hey, walk us through the process. How do you become a registered dietitian?
Okay. So generally, for me, it took me a bit longer because I decided to switch majors all the time. But generally, you're going to do a 4-year undergrad degree. And the first 2 years are pretty basic, like you take your gen ed courses, your basic science courses, biology, chemistry, that kind of stuff, physiology, anatomy. We got to take like all of those courses, all of the general science classes, and then all the biochem, organic chem, that kind of stuff.
All the fun ones.
Yeah, all the fun ones. I actually really enjoyed biochem. I TA'd for biochem back at Michigan State, which is a wonderful thing to do because you get paid and it looks awesome on your resume and you get really, really good at a subject.
Yeah, and that's something I would recommend as well because, you get a little bit more extra time to study with and it may seem lame now, but then when you actually see the grades you get on your tests, it's totally worth it because that little extra ample time, because I'm the same way, right? You learn by teaching. It's if you can't teach the material, then you, in many ways, get to learn that even more in the back of your head.
Absolutely. I'm really good at DNA replication and Krebs cycle and glycolysis and stuff because I have had to explain it so many times.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, TAing is a wonderful thing to do. But so anyways, you go through that first 2 years and then you reach your first kind of cut point. There's multiple cut points to become an RD. So, I mean, your first one is getting into college in general, right?
Yeah.
So you get into college, you do your 2 years, and then most dietetics programs are the last 2 years of college, right? Which is most major programs. Okay. And this one is you have to apply to be into that one. So, because they can only take on like 30, 50 students. And mine was a bigger program. It could take 50 students. So there you go. There's your first cut point. So you make it through that, and then you do your last 2 years, which is where we get more into like your metabolism classes, which were my favorite classes. Your classes where you're going to learn about pretty much everything that happens from when you put a bite of food into your mouth to when it comes out the other end, all the digestion, absorption, everything in between. And then medical nutrition therapy coursework, you got to take a full year of that, which is where we're addressing all of these disease states and stuff and what the proper nutrition therapy is for that. What diet restrictions go along with that or what kind of nutrition therapy interventions can help that process. Think of like burn victims is a big one. They have crazy increased anabolic needs because they are healing all over their body. So they have these crazy increased protein needs, and they also need a bunch more vitamin C and zinc and stuff like that. And they could even have problems eating. That's a whole like deep dive right there. So in each of these little disease states and stuff can get to this whole complicated deep dive in nutrition. Renal system, like kidneys, that is absolutely fascinating for me because that's something that is going to affect every organ system, and nutrition plays a huge, huge function in that. So that's your medical nutrition therapy coursework.
Yeah, and I'd love you to elaborate on that a little bit more later too, because that is absolutely super essential, I think.
For sure, for sure. So medical nutrition therapy, The second kind of domain, we call them domains. So there's these 3 domains. Second domain is community nutrition. So that is, professionally, I went more in the medical nutrition therapy route. And we'll talk about that later. So I'm more clinical. There's the community nutrition route, which I have nothing to do with professionally. But I did a bunch of it in college. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of more analyzing communities, gathering informations, coming up with a plan of education and intervention and stuff like that. So really interesting stuff. Really cool, really changes our world. Not for me, but the people who do it are out there changing lives on a big level. And just kind of, it's more broad scope stuff, more prevention stuff, really awesome stuff. You know, like the whole Got Milk campaign back in the early 2000s. Remember?
Oh, that was everywhere.
Right. That's an example of community nutrition. Now, the whole dairy industry and how that plays into things, that's a whole nother.
Yeah,
that's a whole nother thing.
We'll get to the real world topics.
So that might not have been the best example.
The corporate world, yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. But that's just an example of community nutrition education. Now, the third domain is the dietary or food service domain. So that's all the aspects that go into preparing a meal in a skilled care facility or an acute facility. So there's a lot of safety things that go into that. So this is also part of the job that I do now, is I oversee kitchens and skilled care facilities. That's part of my job right now.
Interesting.
So overseeing all these safety checkpoints that need to be hit, that aren't going to be hit in a normal food service operation, right? So a taco truck is going to be run completely differently than a kitchen in a nursing home or a hospital.
Right.
You know, so I oversee all of that stuff and make sure everything is up to regulation. And there is a lot of fine details that go into it. It's a whole encyclopedia full of policies.
So what is like the main difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian? Like, are they similar?
So a nutritionist, you can call yourself a nutritionist. Anybody can call themselves a nutritionist. A dietitian, you got to do, that 4-year studies of undergrad. Normally it takes people 5 or 6 years because the coursework is really hard. And then you got to do an internship program afterwards, which that's another cut point. It's like, when I was doing it, it's like 50% of people matched. And that's like your residency, where you do about 1,000 hours of supervised practice, take a couple master's courses on the side. Yeah, that's terrible because you don't get paid for any of it. And it's
free labor, baby.
Free labor, 40 hours a week with master's classes. Oh my gosh, I did not sleep last year.
Sink or swim, right?
Exactly. It's like I made it this far. Okay, it's the final stretch.
But again, that's awesome. Probably why it's your whole new job feels that much more rewarding too,
yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's definitely worth it.
And so beneficial to man. And, it's so beneficial.
Yeah.
And as you were saying, for hospitals, and hopefully we can start moving it towards the elementary schools as well, making it so you don't have to go to the hospitals, because that diet, I think is pretty important. How about yourself?
Exactly. Yeah, I think that learning that stuff from a young age has a huge impact on how we develop as humans. Absolutely. And stuff. It's with anything, the behaviors that we learn while we're young, that's going to imprint on us the behaviors we carry out until old age. And when it comes down to health behaviors, well, that's kind of determined on how well are we going to age, Right. Are you going to be, going to GV3 every morning when you're 80 years old, or are you going to be stuck in a nursing home? And that kind of depends on those health behaviors you carry out through life. And yeah, it's absolutely learning those at an elementary school level and stuff. And that's where the community nutritionists come into play, where dietitians play a role in that aspect. That's huge. Very, very huge.
Yeah, because as far as I can remember, I was trying to think, I'm like, yeah, even as a kid, everything that you learn, it's not like you truly are 100% interested, but the things they just stick to the back of your mind, and then they do, like you're saying, you grow up with a certain development. But I also think it's in my opinion more so also what kids take home with them in terms of like, okay, so families that can't afford the food, right? And that is a huge deal, especially in America. I feel like there's a lot of underprivileged people that just don't have access. You know, we've talked about it. You probably read about it too. It's so much easier to go out there and get McDonald's for $5 for a full meal.
Same thing.
Versus, you know, if you want to get something healthy to counteract with that, it's probably like 10 times more.
Right.
I'm exaggerating, of course, but you know, it's much more. And especially if it comes in a family, it's much easier to afford, you know, 4 McDonald's meals versus that. And I think personally, what people truly lack is the importance of your dietary, right? Like, people know that you should be. I feel like as salads and everything are pushed so much, and so people are always like associating salads to diets and being healthy, and they're like, oh, you know, I don't want to eat salad. That's just not my life. And it's like, but that doesn't mean you can't eat the healthy foods. And I think if people were to really be encouraged and be like, all right, you spend, you know, $50 a month on probably all the subscriptions you have. You spend all this money on this food and everything. How much of that are you spending on your own, you know, like on your own well-being? If you really come to think about it, if you're eating all the healthy foods, and let's say you have a registered dietitian because you have, you're in risk for type 2 diabetes or something like that. I guarantee you it's still going to be a lot cheaper than the expense of your health.
Right.
That you're going to have
very,
later.
very expensive nowadays.
Yeah, that medical
unfortunately.
bill. My God.
Yeah, insulin is through the roof.
Oof.
And so it's really about perspective, right? And I feel like there's not enough push in nutrition and having a standard diet. And when people think standard diets, they're thinking, again, salads, broccoli, all the boring stuff.
Right. And you can definitely still have fun with your food and eat a very healthy diet, a very healthy, balanced diet. And, you know, I think there's a lot going on nowadays with social media and all on, you know, food shaming and stuff like that. You know, bad foods and good foods and evil foods.
I do it to myself.
And the best foods, right. And it's like, you got to understand, you know, everything is good in moderation, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think Greg Doucette, we've talked about this before.
Yes,
I think he has the best,
Coach Greg.
Coach Greg, I think he has the best perspective on it. The best diet is the one that you enjoy, that you can enjoy.
Exactly.
And it's
Beautiful.
because you really think about it, it's like the diet shouldn't be called a diet. It should be called your basic lifestyle. That is what you eat. It shouldn't be a temporary thing.
Proper
You know, like you can't be like, oh, you know what, I'm temporarily going to be healthy before I give it up and then join the other side.
Right.
You have to find that middle ground to where it's like, I enjoy this food and then I'm going to keep this food in my diet. Maybe I don't have to eat out every day, every other day. Maybe I could limit that to 1-2 days.
Right. And I actually have kind of a question on that, because you've brought up, and I absolutely agree with all of it, and you brought up eating out a lot. It's kind of what we do a lot nowadays. Do you think that has to do a lot with now the traditional family isn't necessarily just the father working and the mother stays home and is able to cook and make a nutritious meal? Now the mother's working, the father's working, they're both tired, and they come home and you don't necessarily have the time. Do you think that's got a part to do with it?
Yes, I absolutely do.
Right.
I think, and I absolutely support, you know, both individuals working, but the veer away from a traditional family style in which, there is somebody like a caretaker of the household and stuff.
Right.
That has gone more to just pick up takeout and on the way home, pick up a bucket of KFC or a hot and ready pizza and
Or even
stuff.
worse, DoorDash.
Right. Instead of sharing the responsibility, it's gone
Right.
to having no responsibility.
Exactly. But I think part of that is people think that cooking is this huge, laborious, and hard task when really it's kind of a lack of education and skill in cooking, because it takes 15 minutes to, whip up some 96% lean ground beef with some sloppy Joe sauce.
Yeah.
Put that stuff on some buns. They get some coleslaw going, and there you go. Is it a super healthy meal? No, but it's a lot healthier than picking up a hot and ready pizza.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long to do. It just takes some skill. I think those the HelloFresh and Blue Apron and stuff like that, you know what I'm talking about, the meal prep kits?
Yeah, I do.
Those are actually really cool. Because
Yes.
what those do is they teach people how to cook.
Yeah.
And they teach people how easy it is to prepare a really good meal that's also healthy for you. And
Yeah, they just have it cut out. You still have to put everything else on it.
right.
I totally
But it
understand.
teaches you the skills.
Right.
Yeah, and even if like I'm vegetarian, and for me to cook my my day's worth of food, it takes me about 20 minutes of my day.
Right.
20 minutes of my day to cook or to make about 3,500 calories. And you got those and again, you don't have to make the same thing every day.
No.
You really don't. You can always make it up. You can always switch it up. But that's where it comes back to the whole point. There's no interest. There's no encouragement of being like, okay, you have to start investing in yourself. When people are talking about like investing in yourself, they're like, oh, you know what? That just means I'm going to get $100 pair of shoes. I'm investing in my happiness, which is fine. If
Treat yourself.
That's completely fine. But you also, got to take care of yourself in the correct way. And that way is prolonging your life. Staying away from disease, right? That is the that is the definition of being fully healthy, is being free of disease.
Absolutely.
And it's total well-being. And I know there's Raj last week was talking about the huge push on medicine when it comes to, injuries.
Yeah.
There's a huge push on medicine when it comes to, basically like you think about it, stroke, you think about heart attack, you think about diabetes, any of the biggest killers.
All preventable.
Right? All preventable by diets and nutrition. Yes, exercise has to do with it. Exercise is great for your cardio.
And
it's
I love
great
that you
for
guys brought that up on the last interview as
yeah.
well.
Yeah. Exercise is great for you, but nothing beats your nutrition at all. You could work out every day for the rest of your life, but if you're eating pizza at the end of your day, every day, you're still going to get a heart attack at some point.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Probably, unless you're a genetic freak, which there are out there, but don't compare yourselves to them.
yeah.
Don't expect it.
Right.
And that is a perfect transition to talking about fad diets. That is my favorite. We've discussed this so much off the air. I am so glad we're able to talk about it on here because
right now I just want to say no, I need to hear it.
It's crazy, man, because this goes, remember we were talking about social media, the impact of social media. You brought it up earlier too. And it's like, hey, I look great. And then I did this because I did this diet, right?
Right.
That's what you see everywhere. And people are like, I have to eat like him or her because I want to look like them.
Right.
And then it's like, no. That is just how you make that person become as successful as they did. Because there's a lot of these people, what people don't understand is all these models and everything, they shred down like we do for a show prep.
Yeah.
And then they take hundreds of pictures.
Right. They drop water. It's a very depleted and unhealthy state.
Yes. And then they take those pictures and they use those pictures for the promotion.
Absolutely.
Of what they did to get there. And I guarantee you, there's a whole side of it with the PED use we're going to keep out.
Yeah.
But there's a whole, thing about nutrition that's just so concerning because you think about keto diet, people are talking about carnivore diet right now. It's a big thing. Look, if you enjoy it, fine, right? Like I'm vegetarian, and even I am always like, okay, if you're trying to push this vegan agenda, I'm against any type of agenda because there is no perfect diet. The best diet is the one that works for you. Mm-hmm. If you enjoy it, fine. But you don't have to follow one particular person or their diet to achieve that goal, right? Like, you don't need to have chicken, broccoli, and rice every meal to become whatever you're trying to become, because that's what they push on social media. And now you have people like, and I really wanted to just bring this up, you have people like Liver King, right? I call him, he's the biggest joke on the internet, but it's because he's also one of the biggest businessmen on the internet now, because he created a following of uneducated people. He's got a great physique. And then he's out there saying, I got it because I eat raw meat, raw liver, and all that stuff. And it's like,
it's absurd.
And then there are people that genuinely believe that. And there are people that genuinely will try that and probably will end up with E. coli or some type of poisoning at one point. Yeah.
Where's their vitamin C? Literally. There are people who have gotten scurvy from the carnivore diet because where's their vitamin C?
Bro, he's a businessman and a great businessman because it worked.
And amazing. No, all news is good news, right?
Yep.
It's like the Kanye style, right?
Yep. It's absurd to me that people are so easily captured by all because they want a shortcut to look like something.
Yeah, and that's all it is.
They don't want to hear.
Oh, if I just liver in like cow testicles and stuff, like, and sweep on a wooden plank, right? Do all my exercises outside, then I'm gonna look like him.
Yeah.
In a matter of months, right?
Yeah.
I wish.
Not how it works.
I'll do it if that's what it takes. I'll do it. He looks great. I'm not gonna lie. He looks awesome.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because even with the carnivore diet, and it's like these people, they're like, oh, eat organic meat and all that. I'm like, listen, if you're not getting your food from your backyard, it's all processed. And what I mean by that is, you may say that, that beef is from whatever, but what do you think they fed to that animal?
Right. They pay good money for those organic scamps. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a whole politicalized industry. It's crazy, the whole organic industry, because some of that stuff is not much different from the cheaper stuff. They just pay good money for that label.
Right. No, they really do, and it's crazy because everyone's trying to live this prehistoric lifestyle where it's like, oh, you gotta hunt for your food, and that's fine if that's your hobby. Great.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, are we gonna throw dirt in our wounds too instead of taking antibiotics if we get an infection? Come on.
Listen, bro. It's like, at that time we hunted.
Yeah.
We were originally.
It made sense then.
Gatherers.
Right.
To begin with.
Right.
Yes.
Gatherers. Right. And then because we couldn't find enough resources, we became hunters.
Right. And then we started domesticating it.
Then we started domesticating. There's a whole evolution to it. You can't just be like, all right, want to live prehistoric. It means, you got to do this. And
meat was scarce. They didn't go out and get a saber-toothed tiger on their spear every day, or woolly mammoth, whatever they hunted back then.
Yeah.
But, maybe that was before cavemen. I don't know. But meat was scarce, though. It was mostly gathering.
Yeah.
We got some meat.
Yeah.
Let's
First time in
celebrate.
2 weeks. Let's
Yeah.
have a huge
Maybe in a
party and
month.
dance
Yeah.
naked by the fire.
I mean, you
I still do it.
I mean, you still kind of see that around the world, and especially in some parts
Oh, yeah,
of
absolutely.
Africa, there's still
Absolutely.
hunters and gatherer tribes there.
And it's beautiful.
And that's the thing. It's like, you know, I mentioned I'm a vegetarian. That's one of the things I had to really kind of pay attention to, because it was like everyone, and it sucks because like the vegan community, and I'm not talking about the entire community, I'm talking about the people that are just pushing it on everyone.
Right.
The same way the meat industry is pushing it on everyone. I don't agree with either side.
Yeah.
And
A financial agenda,
Yes.
probably.
Yeah.
Yes, the Impossible Burger is not very healthy for you.
it's not, but if
Right.
you enjoy it and you get
Yeah.
your nutrition, it's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I eat it. I'm not ashamed.
I did
I
too.
eat that.
Yeah, for
You
2
know?
years I went pescatarian myself, so I experienced it for
And-
a while.
And that's
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, people are so quick to be like, "You're vegetarian? How do you, you know, like, you don't eat meat? Like, how do you get your protein and everything?" And I'm
Right.
like, dude, you have the same enzymes in you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your enzymes do not go, "Oh man, Andrew ate chicken today.
Right.
You know, let's go ahead and put that here. That's going to be extra protein." Now, there are vegan and vegetarian foods that may not have full complete protein.
Right. The amino acid profile may be
Yes.
different.
Yes.
Because
But that doesn't mean there are no foods like that don't have that
Right.
have it all, because
Right.
there are.
Right.
there are. Yeah.
If
Can
you
expla-
eat,
Oh, sorry. I wasn't sure. Could you explain that to me a little bit further? The amino acids
So,
you're saying?
so yeah. So, okay. So let's kind of start from the top, as in
Okay.
we're putting food into our mouth, right? So we put that food into our mouth. It's a protein. Okay. What is a protein? Okay. A protein is a bunch of amino acids linked together and forming some complex structure that now we call a protein. Right. When we put that food into our mouth, we can't just absorb this complex structure. It's going to go through our digestive system and get broken down into all these amino acids. Okay. And then get absorbed into our bloodstream. So those amino acids, each, those building blocks, getting all cut up, we're taking the Legos apart and we're absorbing the Lego pieces. Okay. Your body doesn't know if those Lego pieces are coming from tofu, if they're coming from beef. They're just the same Lego pieces. Now, amino acids, right? So now what that profile is, if we're talking about meats, those are always going to have all of your essential amino acids in them, the ones that your body can't produce. There's non-essential ones where we can kind of switch one thing into another thing, you know? Like when you're a kid and you're missing the Lego piece, you kind of put like two of them together to kind of make the one, you know? But there's some pieces that you can't really mimic and you're missing it and you're like, oh crap, I can't complete the set.
yeah,
You know? So those are your essential amino acids. Now, meats all carry that like full essential amino acid thing. Not all plant proteins are full of essential amino acids. However, it doesn't matter because all those amino acids are just pooled into your blood from everything you've eaten. So if you're eating complementary protein sources, that's where the classic like rice and beans comes into play. Then when all those amino acids get pooled together, it is a complete protein source.
and
Wow.
and then
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
and
Does
like
that make
he,
sense?
No, it does. Thank you very much.
and like he said, not all plant proteins, but the one that are generally complete are the soy ones.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
soy protein
Yes.
is generally
Right,
complete.
right.
Now, the stigmatization behind that is, man, if you eat soy, your estrogen levels go up. All right, let's discuss that.
Yeah, please.
That's
Phytoestrogen,
it's kind of whack.
phytoestrogen, and estrogen are as different as comparing to the look of an atom to the look of a galaxy, right? Because they look similar and everything,
Yeah.
and then but then there are two completely different things.
Right.
Phytoestrogen is the plant estrogen. However, for that to be as effective as an estrogen, or the hormone, you would need so much. You would need to be probably eating, sleeping, and drinking
Bathing
soy,
in it.
bathing in soy,
Yes.
to be able to get to that level. And
Wow.
and I know they always talk about, because as I mentioned, I'm vegetarian and I had to do all the research by myself because there were a lot of people, especially when I first started, where they were like, vegetarian doesn't do this, doesn't do that. And then I had to really do. I'm like, okay, where are they getting this hormone imbalance from? Where are they getting this soy increases estrogen levels? It is a story about some guy that was in the military, and mind you, this is one research in the entire life plan that's just been passed down, and people have been just using it as a reference out of the blue, right? Because they heard about it. This is one dude who was literally drinking soy protein, or I don't know if it was soy milk or something, literally every meal and every snack. Like, that was his thing. Like we were talking about, he was bathing in it.
Yeah. Forget the Old Spice. Let's just use soy.
Yeah. and he practically lived on it. And yes, when you have too much of anything,
Right.
your body is going to reject it.
Yeah.
Because your body's not meant to adapt, but if you overload it, it's going to reject it. And so that's exactly what happened to him. He ended up getting a higher, estrogen count and all that.
Yeah.
And so it's people really need to put away this entire mentality of we should only be eating a certain thing. We should only be doing this. Right. You should be doing that.
Yeah.
Don't eat that because...
the dogma of it.
Yeah, and the thing is, we were talking about the industries. The meat industry, believe it or not, is one of the biggest industries in the U.S., right? Up there with tobacco.
Yeah.
And so for them to do stigmatization of like vegetarian foods, of course, why not? Because they're making so much profit.
Yeah.
Right.
So my point is not to push you and be like, try vegan food, try vegetarian food.
Yeah.
My whole purpose is eat what you want, but be educated about it overall. Right. And so in your opinion, and this comes down to also in your expertise, and this comes down to the whole stigmatization or being told, this is what you can eat, what you can't eat. What is your take on doctors giving diets? Because I, in my opinion, when I hear a doctor say, and again, doctors are awesome. They're very well educated. They
work with a lot of good doctors.
And they save a lot of lives. We're thankful for your service. Yeah. But the same way I wouldn't expect a registered dietitian to tell me what medication I should take.
Yes.
I don't think a doctor should be in the right state of mind to tell you what you should and shouldn't eat. And now he can tell you what your problem is, but then at that point he should be like, okay, maybe you need to contact a dietitian and see what works best for you.
Right. Doctors, last I checked, take one nutrition class in their whole schooling. We take, I don't know how many, basically all of them. All of the last 2 years are nutrition classes, but they know a lot about the body and the way it works and stuff like that. But usually what they are learning in regards to nutrition is pretty old school and rooted in studies that aren't very good anymore.
Not up to date.
Right. So, and they're just is not their area of expertise. It's not their job to stay up to date on it. Is good if they identify that and refer to the people whose job it is to stay up to date on that stuff. Yeah. I think that the younger doctors are better in that aspect. They have more of a, I think they teach it more in med school nowadays, that they have more of a team aspect to their care. And they teach it more in med school. They teach it to me when I was in school as a dietitian, the interdisciplinary team in medical care, the IDT. So that's, your physical therapist, your speech language pathologist, your nursing staff, your doctor, your dietitian, your pharmacist, all those different aspects of care that manage care in their own little niche, working together with a doctor as the leader. And we're all saying, okay, nutrition wise, we should do this. Raj is saying, okay, from the physical therapy side, we should do this, and we're all putting our ideas together to come up with the best care plan for this patient. Right. So that's the ideal, right? Instead of the doctor just determining everything themselves without any consultations from experts. And I really think that we're really getting away from that. I think it's the more old school doctors, the 60, 70, 80-year-old guys. I'm sure there's a lot of good ones, but
or even the ones that are just full of ego still.
Yes, and you get that from time to time. I'm pretty good at standing up for myself, but not everybody is.
Well, I'll give you an example. Like on, especially, I think it's a bigger issue probably in minority cultures.
Yeah.
Being from the Punjabi culture myself, it's like you hear someone's a doctor, you automatically assume they know everything about your physical well-being. If they told you something, you must follow that. But when it's like, no, like I genuinely think I know about this more than the doctor. I don't know about the body more than the doctor.
Right.
But I do know when he goes on the radio and says ketchup is bad for you because it'll give you diabetes. I'm like, you know,
a lot of ketchup.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, really, like 30-calorie ketchup?
Right.
You're talking about that?
And all you're not going to blame ketchup.
Not the Sour Patch Kids.
Well, no, he's just saying, like, you know, and again, I'm kind of exaggerating what he's saying. He's saying if you eat ketchup with all this food.
Right.
When in reality, it's like, no, man, like in our culture, we're always drinking milk.
Right.
Tea.
Right.
We're always eating wheat flour, whether it's in deep fried food, tortillas. You're eating an abundance amount of sugar. And what people don't understand is sugar is sugar. So I know they say whole wheat is better than, you know, all that. But in reality, again, carbohydrates, sugars are sugars.
Right. So some of them have a lower glycemic index, which might not be so accurate, and I think glycemic load is a more accurate term for it. The amount of it times the glycemic index, but that's kind of another topic. But it's some of it absorbs at a slower rate, so it'll because the same thing, you got to eat it, you got to digest it, you got to absorb it. You know, that whole wheat is going to absorb at a slower rate, going to spike your blood sugar a little bit slower than, you know, Sour Patch Kids. It's going to absorb really fast just because the molecules. But at the end of the day, all this stuff, when it's going into your bloodstream, what it's getting chopped down into, just like the amino acid thing I was talking about, it's all getting chopped down into glucose.
Okay, so I mean, you can, this is why we have you here as a professional. Maybe you can correct it, but I thought I remember reading somewhere that the difference between, for example, I think they used white and brown rice.
Yeah.
The difference between absorption was, which in the glycemic index, white rice is, you know, simple carbs.
Yeah.
Whole wheat is complex.
Yeah.
Or brown rice.
Yeah.
And I say whole wheat. So brown rice is complex, and so the difference they found in the absorption rate was down to like nanoseconds. It wasn't even like a big difference.
Exactly. And you want to know the other thing about glycemic index and all of that is that whole thing goes out the window if you're eating that food with any other foods. Because fats will slow down the absorption of anything. Proteins are going to alter absorption of anything because now you have more food to digest, more food to absorb, right? It makes sense.
Right.
So glycemic index and all that stuff, it got really popular in the 2000s with the whole low-fat diets, low glycemic food, that kind of stuff. Glycemic index only works if you're just eating a strawberry or if you're just eating a Sour Patch Kid or a slice of bread. All of that stuff goes out the window when we start eating other foods with it.
Right.
So,
you're going to make a whole sandwich.
Exactly. So, yeah, the difference isn't huge anyways. And then it comes down to it's a lot less big because the other foods are going to alter the absorption rate. So, at the end of the day, it's all turning into glucose and fructose.
Right. And that's my main problem is like you have all these people that do have authority and they should have authority, but they shouldn't be making decisions outside their scope of field, right? Like, and it's really frustrating that I feel like some people try to keep that alive, you know, especially. And it sucks, man, because you want everyone to be educated. And I feel like you were saying that the younger doctors are getting a better hang of this whole team dynamic. And that's like I feel like the only thing we can truly rely on is, the next set of generations that are going to come in.
Right.
And they're going to do is like, okay, let's throw the bullshit away, because kind of like the BMI, right? The BMI index, the body mass index, that is outdated. And people use it to this day.
A little. I have a rant there. If you want to hear?
Go for it.
Absolutely.
Go for it.
Okay. So BMI. All right. It's your body mass index. Now the reason why Manny says that's outdated is because if your BMI is over 25, you're overweight. Over 30, obese. Right. Over 40, morbid obesity. So my BMI right now, I think I'm at like a 31 or something. So I'm obese right now. I'm a pretty fit guy. I have abs right now. How am I obese, right? Okay.
Right.
So that's where that whole this outdated thing comes from. Any like LeBron James, you think that guy's obese?
Yeah.
No, but his BMI says he is,
Yeah.
So that's where, BMI is outdated. And it is. For athletes, it is. But if you're carrying that amount of muscle, whether you're an athlete in really good shape or not, it does put some extra strain on your heart.
Yep.
Me walking around at 5'10", 250 pounds, at the end of the day, I would probably be healthier if I was 175 pounds.
Yeah.
Right.
So it does have a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
So
And without proper nutrition,
yeah, it plays a big role
Yep.
in athletes, because you see it a lot with collegiate athletes. When I was at Michigan State, I interned for Spartan Fuel. That's the sports dietetics program there. And one of the big programs that they have in that sports dietetics program, educating athletes, is educating their seniors who are about to leave. Because with collegiate athletes, they go from moving all the time, practicing 1 time, 2 times, sometimes 3 times a day working out. They're working out all the time. They can eat whatever they want, right. And they're at this big body mass index. They have a lot of muscle, right?
yeah.
So they're jamming 4,000 calories a day. Actually, our job as sports dietitians is to get them to eat enough food and throw peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at them and stuff. But when they stop playing collegiate sports, a lot of them are at a high risk to gain a lot of fat, to lose their insulin sensitivity and become pre-diabetic and stuff like that. So
Is that because their output is just not
yeah,
matching the input?
exactly. Their output drops, their input stays the same,
Right.
right? And that's where their BMI might stay the same. And before, it was a BMI where you're like, yeah, 29 BMI overweight, but look at me, I got a 6-pack. To
Right.
29 BMI, I might be overweight, but I got a 6-pack right here of Bud Light,
Yeah.
is not the same. So yeah, with collegiate athletes, that's really tough.
Right.
topic there, too.
And I think the main overlooked thing, I mean, we've already kind of touched on in regards to like the diseases and the health risks it takes away, right? Like heart attack and all that stuff when you have a proper diet and you have a proper dietitian.
Right.
And the other aspect I feel like is such a big deal that I think is often overlooked. People find different ways, hey, maybe you should be sleeping better, maybe you should be doing this better, is mental health. And literally what you eat affects your body's response. It's a hormone production and everything. And if you're not producing what your body needs, you will start to have for example, when people are stressed out, when they're going through a mental breakdown, what's their first instinct? They just want to eat, right? And it's like your body, whenever it's burning fuel, it wants food. But if it doesn't, if you're putting, gasoline in the diesel truck, it'll work until it messes everything up. Right, until it won't work anymore, and then at that point,
It'll happen quick too.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing, if you're not feeding your body the right food, if you're not feeding your brain the right food,
Right.
it's an overlooked thing in my opinion.
Right. And that's something, when people have mental health issues, sometimes it can be described as a spiral out of control, you know. And that's one thing that can contribute to that spiral. We're depressed, we're anxious, we're stressed. So we overeat on foods that maybe we shouldn't, our bodies are not going to like, right? So then that makes us feel worse, more fatigued, more anxious, more stressed, more depressed. You overeat on those foods, you binge eat on those foods. You could end up feeling bad about yourself for binge eating on those foods, but those foods are, Dorito chips are so ultra delicious that you can't stop, you know, and they don't fuel you with anything good to get you out of that loop. So that's how that spiral keeps on going and going and going, and it's is a hard thing to pull out of.
Yeah, and even like even if you go down the spiral, I feel like if you're not eating the right food, in my opinion, it has a lot to do with how your brain responds to a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
Like if you're mentally and physically healthy, you should be. It really does depend on your diet, man. And I feel like if you're eating out every day, and I think that's why mental health issues and depression and stuff like that is so much more common. Yeah, it has a lot to do with social media, it has a lot to do with just the confinement of homes, but it also has to do a lot with what you eat. And all these people, they're always eating all this fast food and everything, and then they're always, you know, whether it's drinking or if it's the burgers or whatever, and it's like they're not doing it in moderation. They're doing it.
Oh, yeah.
And what do you know, you said it, your body is going to feel crap.
Yeah.
I mean, alcohol is straight up poison to your body.
They don't want to hear that, man.
I'm like, I know this.
Yeah, me neither. But,
You know?
I've gone down to just drinking a couple drinks a day. On a Saturday, a couple drinks on a Saturday.
Years
and
on end.
I feel way better now. So a couple drinks a week, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I feel way better now.
Yeah.
But so there is, you know, you mentioned the social media contribution stuff, and it kind of sparks something in my brain on, you know, the mental health issues, how that relates to food is, I think one thing is dopamine, right? So for the listeners, dopamine is kind of our reward chemical in our brain. It means we did something good. So it gives us like the good feeling, like, yes, I am good, you know? So, unfortunately, social media has been made to completely abuse our dopamine systems. All the scrolling on TikTok and Instagram, all of that stuff is an algorithm to keep you scrolling because it's the dopamine.
It's what you like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's the same thing with foods. They have food engineers. They're putting billions of dollars into research to make these foods ultra satisfying.
Right.
The best thing you've ever eaten, ever. You know, Dorito chips, Cheez-Its, Sour Patch Kids, all these delicious foods because you eat them. Dopamine. And all that dopamine, it makes your dopamine tolerance so much higher. It makes everything else in life, the simple pleasures, a lot less pleasurable, leading to, you know, higher rates that we're seeing in our society now, higher rates of depression, higher rates of anxiety.
Yeah.
You know, and all that stuff has to do with that dopamine abuse that we're getting from not only social media, but we're getting from all these food sources too.
Yeah.
Super powerful.
Wow. Most definitely. And you know, because I mean, just think about how crazy your brain reacts if you were to all of a sudden cut out pizza, right? Like, that's me, man.
I know you.
That's
love
my
pizza,
baby
brother.
food.
I know you love pizza.
I am the pizza man, and when I have to go on prep now, like whenever I go on prep, like I have a goal, so I'm okay with cutting it out. But I've tried just cutting it out on my off season before, and I go crazy, and it's like, what do I do with my Saturday now? You know?
And
Amazing.
I do think that it is okay to, you know, have that food to indulge in moderation every now and then. If you have the discipline to do it. And that's where in intuitive eating, which is like working on eating behaviors and stuff, they have this term called trigger foods, which, I mean, for me, ice cream is a trigger food, even though I'm lactose intolerant. So ice cream like absolutely destroys me. But if I start eating it, I cannot stop eating it. So
Can't have
therefore,
one chip
I have
Gotta have the whole
no
bag.
discipline when it comes to ice cream.
That's amazing.
Even though it hurts me, literally, like it hurts me. So
Yeah.
If that doesn't prove it.
since that would be a trigger food for me, I have no discipline over it.
Well, you know,
So I can't have it. It does not belong in my house.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
like, I know it's hard,
Part of the
but
discipline.
you got to recognize like these foods that you like to indulge in are great in moderation.
Yeah.
If you have the discipline to do it, and if you don't, then that's when we call it a trigger food.
You know, speaking of trigger foods, I think didn't they say like some of the research shows that sugar is actually more addictive than like crack and stuff like that. And you think about all the foods that we are all addicted to are full of sugar, whether it's the burgers or Starbucks or the ice cream.
or fat.
I actually wanted to ask a question about that. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if it was an ignorant question or not, but when it comes to like the addiction factor, is that a bacterial in the body that makes you crave it, or is that simply a state of mind?
It's that dopamine. thing.
Dopamine.
Really?
Yep.
Just like a drug.
Yes, just like a drug.
No bacterial influence of any sort.
It's the same thing. So, I mean, there are some drugs like morphine and stuff that have like physical addiction properties.
Right,
Where you
right,
can
right.
actually
Alcohol.
die when you're coming off of it.
Yeah.
But there is also the dopamine mental addiction. So that's why some people are addicted to theft, sex, shopping. Shopping, online shopping,
Right.
lots of dopamine. You know, theft. You get away with it. Lots of dopamine.
Get away with it?
Yeah.
So it's the same form of addiction. It's a dopamine addiction with a certain behavior attached to it. You know,
I
and a
understand.
lot of time, people who have had an addiction of some sorts to one thing before, that was associated with the dopamine, not like a physical addiction, but also a physical addiction, because that is also a dopamine addiction.
Right.
So we'll call it a behavior addiction. If they've had one before and they managed to kill that, they're much more likely to have it with a different behavior.
So if you know you're a person with addictive personality,
Exactly.
you should stay away from addictive items.
Exactly. So if you have an addictive personality, sugar might be very dangerous
Don't
for
do
you.
cocaine.
Yeah, definitely don't do cocaine. I myself know that I have addictive personality.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, my addiction is working out.
Right.
I can't play video games because video games is also a dopamine. RPG games like, oh, new sword, sweet.
Right.
Oh, new armor, sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, kill goblin, awesome. Level up, yeah. So
Yeah.
I can't do that
Interesting.
because I'm just a dopamine addict.
No, I fully understand. And Andrew, is there anything in your field that you want to bring light to? Maybe there's some type of issue or something that you want to really put your voice out there, because we may not know, normal people like us, we may not know what's going on in your field, and but you do. And for the people that are aspiring to be registered dietitians or just, interested in stuff like this, do you have anything on your mind?
Or any myths you'd like to bust as well.
Yeah. Now's your chance, man.
First off, one thing that I do want to go back to is when I was talking about glycemic index, I almost made it sound like it was okay to eat the sugary stuff. The sugary stuff, like we just talked about, elicits a lot of dopamine, and it's so calorically dense that it's really easy to overeat, and that's why it's going to spike your blood sugar up so high compared to a slice of bread. It's a lot, or an apple. Super hard to overeat apples. You're going to get full before you overeat apples compared to a bag of candy.
Low calorie foods.
Yes.
Right. You could eat high volume. That's probably like you want to lose
low
weight.
calorie dense
Super
foods.
important.
Oh yeah. Tell me about that. If you were to tell someone the most basic way to eat weight and to lose weight,
Okay.
because I feel like that's the biggest thing. Most of people are like, hey, I just want to be toned, or I want to lose weight, and it is calories in versus calories out. But in terms of like, what is their best advice to these people?
All right. Let's break it down into 5 things, 5 tips, okay? Tip number 1. We all have something in our pockets called a phone that tracks our steps. Okay? Start with 10,000 steps a day. just to get more activity. You don't have to start by working out every day, but get more activity, 10,000 steps a day. Maybe crank it up to 12. Okay? That way you're just on your feet more every day. You're going to feel better. Your body's going to thank you, and it's going to help you, increase your metabolism and potentially lose that weight faster. So really easy thing we can do right there. Step number 2. Get a bit more protein in your diet. You don't need a whole lot of protein. If you're not working out, humans only need 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. So 100 kilogram person, a 220 pound dude, it's a pretty big dude, only needs 80 to 100 grams of protein. Okay. So it's not a ton.
Yeah.
Now just spread it out throughout the day. 4 meals, maybe 3 meals, 2 high protein snacks. Protein is the most satiating thing. It keeps you the most full. It's going to keep you from overeating other food. So start those meals with a protein base. Okay. Step 3 is you want low calorie dense foods. Okay. Like Manny was just saying. So you want like vegetables, stuff like, vegetables are really good.
Fruits are pretty good. And
fruits are really good. You can go with grains and stuff too. Those are going to be a little bit more calorie dense, but definitely stay away from the high calorie density food. Things like really fatty meats and stuff, like hamburger meat, that 80-20 ground beef. That stuff has a lot of fat in it per bite, a lot of calories per bite. So that kind of stuff is going to add up really fast, not make you super full. So fruits, vegetables, super healthy nutrients for you. There's nutrients in there. We don't even know what they are or what they do, but we know they're good for you. So eat them. I'm completely serious. There's phytonutrients. We don't know what they are, but they're good. We know they're good. So that's 3 steps. Okay. Let's have a 4th step. Cut out any calories that you're drinking, because that stuff is not going to keep you full, and it's probably just raising your blood sugar for, no good reason. So, that Starbucks drink, maybe, you switch to the sugar-free syrups with some Splenda and almond milk or something.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Remember? That causes cancer. Remember?
You can drink all the diet soda you want. You're going to have to drink gallons of it. You're going to have to bathe in it like the soy we were talking about to get cancer. So don't worry about your diet sodas, okay, people? So low-calorie beverages. Stay away from the full sugar Coca-Cola. That's actually high-calorie dense food that doesn't really do anything for your body except for give you a little sugar buzz, a little hit of dopamine, and the caffeine.
Right.
So, for your own mental health too, stay away from that stuff. So, low calorie beverages, water. I like, at Walmart, you buy the little flavor packs you mix into your waters. Those are great. Those are awesome.
Or you could, I used to get just the amino acids.
Yeah.
The drink, and then just put it in my gallon of water. Makes it easier to drink the entire gallon, and has taste, and it's great for you.
BCAAs have gotten very controversial in the past couple of years. Like, they don't do anything, but people are like, yeah, well, they're pretty good at flavoring your water. Yeah. And if people drink more water, then that's great for them, because nobody drinks enough water.
Yeah.
So that'll be my 5th tip, is drink plenty of water.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you're thirsty, it's too late.
Yes.
Okay.
Well put.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm thinking a gallon a day is a really good start. I drink 2 gallons a day, but I'm pretty large. So, yeah.
And that's the other thing I actually wanted to bring up. And now that we have a registered dietitian here, Diet Cokes, Coke Zero.
Yeah.
Sugar-free ketchup, sugar-free chocolate, everything. It feels like, I agree with you. It's great for you, but it feels like all the, again, some of the doctors and some of these people that are not registered dietitians, or they don't have enough experience in the field, come out and say, oh man, they have linked to cancer. Well, No duh. Just like any other food that is processed. Anything you microwave is linked to cancer.
Right.
And it's the same way people were saying, don't eat too much microwave food because it's radioactive and it's going to give you cancer. And so it's just like a lot of this false information.
Yeah.
What's your... okay, explain to us, is it okay if I went home today and tomorrow and for the rest of the week I drink a Diet Coke a day? If that meant to, those 0 calories made me healthier than giving in and drinking in actual cake. I mean, Coke.
Yeah, Coke and cake.
It's about.
They're both, yeah. Yeah, a Diet Coke, if we're comparing a Diet Coke, a water is probably going to be healthier than both options, it's water. To say Diet Coke has absolutely 0 negative health effects is, I'm not a fan of black and white statements like that, as Dr. Mike Issertail always likes to say, only the Sith think in black and white. I don't know, it might have a little bit of damage, but if we are comparing a Diet Coke to a regular 35 grams of sugar per can Coca-Cola, Diet Coke is going to be a way healthier option for you.
Check.
The whole Link to Cancer thing, go look up. Lane Norton has done a lot of stuff on this.
Thank God for that guy.
I know, right? He's a man of science.
He is
true man of science.
Coming out, especially from the fitness industry, and just putting all these rumors, all these myths to bed. And I love that, man, because we never had that before.
Yeah.
No, he's somebody who inspired me to really pursue and study nutrition.
That's awesome.
Back in I started reading his stuff in high school back in 2012. And when I was really trying to be okay, I've been to college for 3 years, I really got to figure out something to do. He's somebody who reading his stuff all my life really inspired me.
Yeah.
I want to kind of become an expert in this.
Yeah.
So love that guy. He's put out a bunch of information debunking the whole myth behind diet sodas and cancer and stuff like that. So he's done a very thorough job, and he's very good with words. So
I'd love to check him out.
Yeah.
Not to trigger you again, but how do you feel about holistic healers?
Holistic healers. Yeah, I think you guys brought that up in Dr. Raj's podcast. So a holistic healer when it comes to nutrition, I'm not necessarily sure.
It's not their field, right?
It's not their field at all. Okay. And I have no idea where they've studied, how they've studied, or they could be spewing nonsense.
A lot of times it's passed down stories.
Yeah, I have no idea. And to be completely honest with you, maybe they're saying some stuff that, could be true. Maybe I wouldn't say everything is wrong, but I wouldn't take their word for fact.
Right. It was more like trial and error rather than deep science.
Well, the thing is, it goes back to the fact, who are you asking, right? You have to ask someone whose opinion and expertise is valid. Again, it doesn't matter if it's a holistic healer, if it's MD, or anyone. If their field of profession is not what your question is, if I'm asking about my diet, why am I going to someone who has some knowledge or no knowledge and asking them for their advice on it?
Right.
Wouldn't the Liver King be considered a holistic healer?
I just consider, like I said,
right.
He's a great businessman. I do not have anything against that guy, because
you need to eat liver to make liver stronger.
Yeah. That is true.
Yeah.
It's holistic.
No, and that's the type of stuff I really hope, and especially in the future, we'll be back and with future topics. I mean, we've been going on for a while now, and it's awesome. Yeah. It was great having you on board, Andrew.
For a long time.
Yeah,
no,
I've learned a lot myself, so thank you. I really appreciate it.
I mean,
of course. I'm sure everyone else has learned quite a bit.
Yeah. And nutrition and diets, they're always changing. Obviously, more questions arise and everything, and
Yeah.
we'd love to have you come back on board.
I'd love to be back because there are so many little rabbit holes that we could have just went down.
Oh, exactly.
Oh, write
We
them
had
down.
to resist going down. You know?
Write them down, and that is, we'll explore those whenever we get the chance. But again, man, I appreciate you coming by.
Yeah.
And for everyone else, thank you for watching. If you're on, we're also on Spotify now. And if you're on Spotify, you can access our podcast there. So if you're listening or you're watching, we thank you for your time, and we'll see you next time.